Welcome to episode number 3 of The Weaving Show. I'm so happy you joined me today. If you're new or returning, welcome to the show. If you have decided to start your own weaving podcast or YouTube channel talking about what you're working on, then drop me a line down below and let me know. I would like to hear what you're working on. So I have an exciting new segment to announce. I'm going to announce it before I debut it, but it is going to be a segment, and this is fully inspired by Doreen's suggestion, so thank you very much, Doreen. And I'm going to call it Weavers in the Wild. And I would love it if you don't want to set up your own YouTube channel, weaving podcast. If you would like to share, though, and set up a 5 to 10 minute video, you can just take it with your phone and send it over to me, and I will pop it into this show. And so you can share what you're working on and let everyone know what you're weaving, how you came to weaving, some favorite equipment or techniques, any tips you have for beginners or intermediate weavers, anything you wish you had known earlier. And so you can do it just with your phone or with a camera. I'd be looking for a 5 to 10 minute video in HD, so 720p or 1080p. And I will leave a link to my show notes page down below, and that will have, the show notes page will have a link to my email address, and you can get in touch with me if you have any questions, or if you are ready to upload your video, I will give you the address to upload it to. I think we're going to be using Dropbox, and hopefully we can get a good little community going with weaving and podcasts. So, and maybe I'm hoping that I can convince one or two of you to record me a little snippet, and maybe that will be the boost in the right direction to get you doing your own weaving podcast. I would absolutely love that. So I'm hoping that somebody out there wants to do it, and yeah, look for that coming in the future. Okay, so I have some show notes with me today. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about my floor loom, which I'm going to insert into the next section, and then we're going to come back here and we are going to talk about an upcoming project. So join me at the floor loom in a minute, and I'll talk to you in a sec. I thought I'd take us downstairs today to my loom room. So this is my den. It is a general dumping ground, plus my husband's office. His computer and desk and stuff are over there. And it also doubles as the room with the litter box in it, so it gets vacuumed a lot, which is a good thing. And yeah, so I thought that I would introduce you to my floor loom. This is a loom made by the Mountain Loom Company. They're quite well known for their table looms, and I have not been able to find really any information online about their Counterbalance floor looms. So this is a Counterbalance loom, and it was made in the early 90s, about 1992, and I actually have the original paperwork on it, which came with it when I bought it, which was really a neat thing. And it has been living at my house in my basement for a little while now, not for very long, and I thought I should introduce you to it. So here it is. It's made of maple. It's beautiful. It's not folding. It is a very solid loom. It was used primarily to make rugs, and it's quite a heavy beater on it. It came with just the 4-dent reed, which is, the spacing on a 4-dent reed is like crazy far apart. And it has, all of its cords are Texsolve, and all of its heddles are Texsolve as well. So this, when it was being sold, it had a part of a rug on it, and what the woman who sold it to me did is she pulled off the project that was on there and rolled the warp onto the warp beam at the back. So I was able to salvage that warp and continue on if I wanted. So when I got it home, I put it back together. We had to take it apart quite a bit but we were able to leave the castle kind of intact, separate but intact. So the castle is this thing here, and with these still on it, with everything still kind of attached, which was nice. So we didn't have to change any lengths of anything or anything like that, or figure out the lengths of anything. But that has kind of bit me in the butt in the last little while, which I'll get into in a little bit. So I got it home, got it put back together, and I decided that I would thread everything, so thread the heddles. The woman who sold it to me gave me the pattern that she had been working on in case I wanted to continue on with that, which I thought was super nice. And so I came home and I rethreaded the heddles, and I reslayed the reed and tied onto the apron rod and started on some weaving. And I don't have any yarn in my stash that's suitable for a rug, so I opted instead to dive into my fabric stash, and I had a couple of yards of this fabric, which I will try and get it up here. My camera's been a little hit or miss with focusing, so I'm hoping it is, but it's really different light down here from what I'm used to recording in. So this is the fabric that I was using. So I cut this into 2-inch strips. And I thought that I was going to have to cut it with my rotary cutter, which wouldn't have been a problem. I thought it was going to be kind of time consuming, but not a big deal. And it turns out though, I was able to just snip about 1/2 inch and then just tear the fabric down to the right size, which was really nice. So 2-inch strips. And then I didn't have any more seine twine, which it came with the seine twine warp. So I should have cooled my jets and been patient and ordered some more seine twine or something appropriate to weave a header with, but I didn't. I just jumped right in with this fabric. And so I got to the end of this fabric and I realized that I didn't have enough to make a proportionate looking rug. So the width of this warp is about 2.5 feet, and the amount I was able to weave with this fabric was not much more than that. So it was looking like it was going to be basically a square, which I thought was going to look a little bit weird, and I don't have anywhere to put a square rug. So I realized at that point I was either going to have to just call this a test and take it off and do something else and kind of get rid of it, or I was going to have to unweave a whole bunch and basically start again. I needed to weave a header, which I didn't do on the first go round, so I've got nothing really to fasten it off with. And I also didn't leave a ton of warp before I started the weaving, so there really isn't a lot to work with there. And it's not long enough anyway. I wasn't able to get enough out of this fabric, and I have a couple of other coordinating fabrics that I think would work pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unweave this fabric and mix it up with the other coordinating fabrics after I weave my header. I did order some more seine twine. I picked it up just from Jane Stafford Textiles online store. She's over on Salt Spring Island, and it came super quick. I ordered it. It was like one morning, and I had it the next day, and it was just regular shipping. So I thought that was amazing. And so yeah, I now have my seine twine. I am working on unweaving, which is very, very time consuming, but it's just plain weave, so it's pretty easy to do. So what I had done is I'm just going to show you a little bit up close here what I've been working on. So what I actually ended up doing was I started on this and then I left it for a while and I came back to it, and my shafts were all at weird heights, and that was not a good thing. So I ended up playing around. It took me a really long time to get all right, that's the only problem with messing with the camera. It's never right back to the right spot. Okay, so when I first got it, I readjusted it, but I kept everything at the same heights. So the textile cord that go to the horses, the shafts, everything was the same height that it was before, because I figured it was a functioning loom before. I'm just going to leave it at that. Well, I had a really hard time getting my shafts to sit at the same height, even close to the same height. They were just all over the place. So I finally did manage to get them balanced and fine. And that this is with a warp on, because with a counterbalance loom, you need to have your warp on in order to balance everything properly. So with this warp on, I did that. I finally got it going totally fine. And then I did my treadle tie up. And I did the treadle tie up that was called for in the pattern that I had received from the person I bought the loom from. And that was basically a tie up for 2 were dedicated to plain weave, and then 4 of the treadles were dedicated to a 2-2 twill. And so I have heard that on a counterbalance loom, that if you're doing twills, where you're dealing with kind of unbalanced stuff, that you can have trouble with getting a good shed. But as soon as I tied up my treadles, even though I had them all at the exact same height and all with the exact same amount of tension on the cords that were tying them up, as soon as I did that, my shafts were all out of alignment again. So I fiddled around with my tie-ups, and I made some a little bit looser and some a little bit tighter, and I finally got it going. So it was fine. All my shafts were at the same height. And then, so I did my weaving, and then I came back to it thinking I was going to do some more, and they were all totally jumbled again. And the kids aren't allowed down here. So like they're gated out. But I did have Red, my cat, lying on here. He thought this was his hammock, which we've now remedied by I just leave my stick shuttles in a cross on here and he avoids it now. So that's fine. But I had done some more reading, and I realized that I really needed to untie my treadles and see where things were going wrong again. So I untied the treadles and I saw if it was balanced or not, which it wasn't. And I fiddled around with things a little bit, and I got it so everything was sitting properly. But then before I did any more tie-ups for my treadles, I realized that I hadn't checked very carefully to make sure that the warp threads were going right through the middle of my heddles. And so these are textile heddles. I have a couple here that are just loose. And so this warp thread is supposed to go right through the middle. Let's see if I can do this. Right through the middle of this hole here. And I realized that since I hadn't checked before, I didn't really know where I stood with that. And I knew I needed to figure out where I stood with that before I tied anything up or went any further. And I realized my shed was not great either. So I realized that my warp threads were all at the top here. So that means that I needed to raise my heddle up a little bit. So my assumption that everything was adjusted to where it needed to be was not right, or I guess it's possible something got stretched in transport or something. So what I ended up doing is I tightened up these guys so they're a little bit higher up than they were before. So I reduced the distance in here. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to reduce the distance in here, or if it even matters, but I figured I'd start here because it was nice and easy, and see how things went there. So I did that, and I've got the warp thread sitting right in the middle of the heddle now, and it's all good. Everything's balanced. So I thought, okay, and now I'm going to tie up just for plain weave. So I'm going to have shafts 2 and 4 on one treadle and 1 and 3 on the other treadle, because really I would be totally happy right now with this loom if I could just weave plain weave. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to tie that up and do that. So I did, and what I did is I used a box underneath my treadles, and just to make sure that they were all sitting at the same height for doing my tie-ups. And so they were all at the same height, and I tied it up again and held my breath and looked up, and all of my shafts were all still level. So it must be something past that. It must be something about tying up for the twill. Or maybe it was just really the cords needed to be shortened, and I don't know. I'm a little nervous to tie up anything else, but really though, what I want to do is I want to get this unwoven, rewoven, intermixed with the other fabric that I'm going to use, and put in a header, and then then I'll go from there, I think. So right now, all my shafts are level. They're all aligned, and they all have the warp thread going through at the right height. And I have a pretty nice little shed going there. So it is significantly better than when I was doing when I didn't have my warp threads, or I didn't have my shafts adjusted quite properly. So that has been so far a good experience, I guess I can say, but I do still need to get this unwoven. And part of the problem with having been used as a cat hammock is that when Emily, my 1.5-year-old, when she was born, I've always had cat allergies. They were much worse when I was younger, and then they got much, much better. We've had the cats. Our older cat is 13, 14. And so we've had cats for a really long time. And my allergies were getting better. And then Emily was born, and they've got worse and worse and worse ever since then. So I actually have quite severe cat allergies. So like if I pet them, I end up with hives on the inside of my arms. So I can't really pet them unless I'm going to wash my hands right after. Anyway, so part of the problem with having red lying here is that now I'm allergic to all of this fabric. So as it's coming out, it's releasing cat fur and stuff into the air, and it is just killing me. So I've been having to take a Claritin before I come down and work on pulling it out, which is a little bit frustrating, but hopefully sorted for the future by just keeping these guys, my stick shuttles, on here. So the reason I'm using stick shuttles, these are stick shuttles from my Ashford Rigid Heddle loom. The reason I'm using these is because I don't have another shuttle that's suitable for using scraps of fabric. I have 2 boat shuttles, but I would really need either a rag shuttle or a ski shuttle if I was going to continue on doing rugs. At this point, I don't think I will. I don't feel like that's really my thing. That's not really what I'm interested in weaving. It might be. It's nice to have that option in the future, but right now I'm really not. And so I want to weave more fine things. I really, really, really want to weave dish towels, which I know sounds ridiculous, but it can't sound ridiculous. Lots of people weave dish towels. Anyway, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more coming up later in the show. But I have a couple of boat shuttles. I have a shacked boat shuttle that is a bottomless one. And this is the 11-inch, I think. And it's the one that takes the 4-inch bobbin. And it is the regular height and width one. And I got this specifically to use with this loom. And I also have the boat shuttle that I use with my table loom, which is a shacked slim 11-inch boat shuttle. And it does have a bottom on it. But that way they all take 4-inch bobbins, so it's nice and interchangeable. And I had 10 before for the one upstairs, and now I have 10 more for this one. So I think hopefully I'll be good for a little bit, although I suspect I'll have lots more little bobbins in my future. Anyway, so I think that was all I was going to say about this loom for now and this project on it. I'm not really enjoying myself with it right now. Because I don't really want to weave rugs, but I don't really want to waste this warp. And I don't know, I feel like I just maybe have some sort of weird, like, obligation to the person who sold me this loom to weave off a couple of rugs with this warp, and I have an obligation. I feel like I have a strange obligation to use up this fabric. This used to be my grandma's fabric, and so I'm a little bit attached to it. So I think I do want to get it finished, but I would really rather be weaving something else, I guess. That is the truth of the matter. So this is my table loom, and hopefully you guys will be seeing a lot more projects from that in the future. So I'm going to be right back. We're going to move back upstairs where the light is better and I'm not allergic to my surroundings, and I'll talk to you in just a second. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed joining me at the floor loom in my den, and thank you for sticking with me and coming back. So speaking of being allergic to that room, which is absolutely no fun at all, I was chatting with my husband yesterday by email, and I was expressing my frustration with my loom not being balanced properly and having a struggle with that, and then on top of that being totally allergic to the whole room and the cats getting into it and all of that. And he made kind of an intriguing suggestion, which was that we pack up our dining room table and put that into one of we've got a couple of different storage areas in the house, basically like crawl space type things. Pack up the dining room table and the chairs and put them in storage and bring the loom into the living room or the dining room, which I don't know. If I can make it work downstairs, I'm going to make it work downstairs because I would much rather have that dining room table. But we use it a couple times a year at most. And we have our kitchen table we can use, which just means I would have to probably move my table loom also into the dining room. And we were going to set up kind of a gate system so I could have, he referred to it as my own playpen, which I don't know, I kind of like the sound of that. So I'm just having a sip of tea today. I'm having vanilla bergamot by David's Teas with just a little bit of 2%, 1% milk in it, which is absolutely delicious. It's on sale right now. They're discontinuing it, which is why, but it's really good. It's even without the milk in it, it's a very milky bergamot white tea, which is funny because I don't like bergamot and I don't really like white tea either, but I love this tea. Okay, so let's get into a future project. I found online, Interweave has their handwoven magazine, and they also, you probably know this, they have while I'm on the subject of handwoven, my library actually has a subscription to handwoven, so I can download it. I get a little notification every time there's a new issue available, and I can download it using the Zinio app, which is how my library allows us to access online or digital magazines. They have a copy or a subscription to Spin-Off as well, so that's how I get my Spin-Off magazines, and it saves me having a stack of magazines, more stacks of magazines in my house, which I really like, because those things get so dusty. It's ridiculous. So check out your library and see if you can get a digital subscription to handwoven if you're interested in that. Anyway, Interweave has on their website a whole bunch of resources if you sign up for their newsletter, which I know nobody wants to sign up for the Interweave newsletter. They come out too often and it's impossible to get off their list and it's a gigantic pain. I know, but they have some good resources. So it's kind of worth the trade-off sometimes. And then you know when their sales are too. So I am not in any way sponsored by Interweave. I'm just putting it out there. So I found this little workbook thing. And it is from Weaving Today. I'm going to read it like this because I can't obviously read it without looking at it. Free hand weaving projects for beginners, simple, elegant, and colorful handwoven placemats and handwoven towels from Weaving Today. And there are a whole bunch of projects, and it is totally geared for beginners. It really, really is. So there are a couple of projects I'd love to do in here. There's the Anything But Plain 12 placemats on one warp, which if you don't have a cotton stash, you had to buy a lot of yarn to make this, but it's 12 placemats. And I just printed it out in black and white, which is totally unhelpful of me. But, and I don't even have my phone right here either. I was going to pull it up. So, for example, for this one, they give you warping tips, design suggestions, and then there is a very detailed step-by-step instruction page on weaving the placemats. So someone with fairly limited knowledge would definitely be able to tackle this. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me. I can understand that. The next project in here is Elegant Placemats by Suzy Lyall'S. And I actually almost bought the yarn to do these. They are done with, I think it's 3-2 cotton. This is a project from Handwoven from November, December 2009. And it is Huck and Huck lace. And it is, 3-2 pearl cotton for these placemats. So I would love to do those. That is definitely on my list of projects that I would like to tackle in here. I need to get myself a little duotang or something like that for this set of patterns and projects, because I I would definitely reference this again. So the project that I'm going to do out of here, and actually I already have the yarn for, is called Playing with Stripes, and it's by Jean Chorus. And it's from Handwoven March-April 2003. And it is dishcloths, or dish towels, tea towels, I guess. And there is a ton of information on striped and plaid towels, preparing the loom. For example, it goes into tips if you're warping back to front or front to back. I've never warped front to back. I kind of have a vague idea of what goes on with that, but I've done back to front. And also tips for things to look for as you're going on. And then it tells you, like, right down to details like this. It tells you it says, you know, follow the draft on this figure, this page, and the threading is called straight draw. So i.e. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's really beginner, because an experienced weaver would know that. It wouldn't have to say that. You'd be able to look at the draft and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I know that's straight draw. But if you're a total newbie like me, you might not, which actually I did know that one, but I very well may not have. And then talks about it. I'm just going to quote it really briefly. With it, you can weave plain weave, raising 1 and 3 versus 2 and 4, or twill 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 1. And it tells you how many ends, and it tells you how many heddles you're going to need in total, which is really nice. But just really, it kind of holds your hand through the whole project. And step by step for how to design the stripes, how to weave the towels, really super step by step. It tells you also add or subtract 1 yard from the warp length, depending on if you want to make an extra towel or fewer towels. And as written, though, it will produce 7 hemmed towels that are 21¼ inches wide by 27 to 31 inches long. And it also tells you need your weave structure is going to be plain weave and 2x2 or 2-2 twill. I always want to say 2x2. I think it's because I am used to ribbing with knitting. And the equipment you need: a 4-shaft loom, 26-inch weaving width, 10-dent reed, and 3 shuttles, which I have 2, and I'm going to make do with that. And so the colors that are called for in this pattern, obviously you can change them up, are blue, yellow, and white, white being kind of the main one, and then blue slightly less, and then yellow slightly less than that, I think. Let me see. Blue, and yeah. So the most you need 1.5 pounds of white, 1 pound of yellow, or 1 pound of blue, and 1/2 pound of yellow. And I've switched it up. I'm doing, my main color is going to be white, so I've got 3. This is 8-2 cotton, and it's not organic or anything fancy. It's just 8-2 cotton. And so I got 3 of these because they're 1/2 pound each. So I needed 1.5 pounds. So I got 3 of these. And then because I'm switching out the blue for the yellow, I got 1 of these, 1/2 pound of the yellow, and then 1 pound of salmon. And these are all from Jane Stafford Textiles, the online shop. This one is called salmon, the yellow is called butter, and then the white is the bleached cotton. So I think they'll make some really nice, springy, summery, happy towels. And I'm super, super looking forward to getting started on the warp for this, while I continue to mess around with my unweaving and weaving of that rug downstairs. I am going to do up my warp and on the warping board, and then I'm going to chain it and have it all ready to go for when that rug is done. And then that is going to be my plan for the next thing on the floor loom, because you need more of a weaving width than my table loom can allow. My table loom is only a 20-inch weaving width, and you need a 26-inch weaving width for these towels. So that's my plan, and if all goes well, then I might tackle those placemats after. And just to kind of cover off the rest of what's in this booklet, Huck windows, dish towels in linen and lace, and of course I don't have it printed in color. These are quite pretty. These are shown in the same colors as the last dish towels that I was talking about. So the blue and yellow and white. I think I might tackle that. I would really like to explore Huck lace, and gives you all sorts of tips. Here's more of a close-up. And then I think that was it. Yeah, that was it. So it's a nice little booklet. How many pages is it? 17 pages in total. Huge amount of information, and I'm really looking forward to working on a couple projects out of there. And Interweave has a whole bunch more little booklets and stuff like this, so I'm hoping to work through those. And I like that they kind of hold your hand through it, because I'm definitely a major beginner still. So it's going to be my next project. I'm hoping possibly to maybe get the warping done on that this weekend, or get the warp done for that. Get up to the warp chain point and yeah, get that done for this weekend, and then go from there. Hopefully I can get my unweaving done also by the weekend, which would be nice. And then I'll start fresh next week and go from there. So that's all I'm working on this week. But I thought I would check in and say hi. Remember, if you are starting your own weaving podcast, let me know below, and I would love to give you a shout out on the show. Also, if you're interested in popping in a 5 to 10 minute video of your weaving experience, what you're working on, favorites, projects that you've made, anything like that, then get in touch. My email address will be in the show notes for episode 3, this episode, on theweavingshow.com. Thank you again for joining me today, and I will talk to you again soon. Happy weaving!